Good evening, everybody. I'm glad you could join me this evening. I want to take just a few minutes of your time to tell you about something that's important to me. First, I want you to think you're on a mountainside with over 5,000 people that have followed you up there. You have nobody around, no cities, no towns, no food. The only food you got is 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. This is how Matthew, in chapter 14 of the New Testament, spoke of Jesus on the mountainside, how he fed over 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. I'm not going to teach you to create miracles today, but I am going to tell you a little bit about fishing. My 3 main points that I'm going to tell you about is, if you understand fish and what you're fishing for, you know where to fish, and you pick the right tackle out to fish with, then you'll greatly increase your chances of catching fish. We're going to start out telling you a little bit about each different species of fish. The first one we're going to be talking about is the bass. The bass is found in the fresh waters of Georgia. It is a predatory fish. It basically is the top of the food chain in the waters of Georgia. It bites on instinct. Basically, it just eats everything around it. If it sees it and it likes it, it's going to strike at it. Then you have panfish, which are brim, crappie. They're also predatory fish, and they feed on live bait also. But due to their size, they often get eaten by the larger bass that are in the area. And then finally, we have the catfish. The catfish is a bottom feeder. He eats dead food, live food, whatever he can find. If he can get his mouth around it, he will eat it. The catfish is about like a vulture of the water. It's going to do your cleaning up. It's going to eat all your dead carcasses. It's going to eat anything else. As gross as that may be, they're actually pretty good to eat. Second thing is, if you know where to fish, it will greatly increase your success as a fisherman also. Bill Dance is a 23 national title holder of bass tournaments in the United States. He's wrote 7 books, and he's been in over 2,000 TV shows since 1968. A quote from him, he says, "Be fully aware of the area you are fishing." That's a good quote. If you don't know where you're fishing, then you're not going to be successful. This is an area map of a lake. I want to point out good places to fish are points. As you can see, anywhere in there where the lake takes a turn, for some reason fish like to congregate in these areas. That can be a very good place to fish. Next thing I'd like to talk about is ledges. This is not a very clear picture, but if you can see, it shows the water depth in the ponds and the lakes, how it drops from one level to the other. The ledge is always a really good place to fish because often bait fish and things like that hang out there, and the predator fish like the brim, the bass, the catfish and stuff like that, they will actually go in there and try to catch the predatory fish. And then structure. Structure is always a good thing to look for. This is probably the best thing that's going to help any weekend angler, because a lot of people ain't going to have the technology and the fish finders and the boats to go out there and find the ledges in the big lakes. But you can look for any kind of rocks, falling debris in the water, anything like that. The fish are going to hang around those areas in order to either hide from other fish in order to trap them and catch them as they swim by, or the smaller fish sometimes hide from the bigger fish in those areas. You know, a lot of people don't like to fish around structure because they get hung up and they lose tackle, but it will greatly increase your chances of catching a fish if you try it around these areas. Now we're going to talk about choosing the right kind of equipment. Choosing the right kind of equipment is very important. I got 3 different basic types of poles and rods here. This is a bass pole. This is an Abu Garcia. It's a pretty expensive setup. This is my son's. I'm not into bass fishing. But you got to have the right equipment for each type of fish. Then you got a panfish pole. You got a lighter line, smaller rod. You don't need quite as big stuff to catch smaller fish like the panfish, the crappie, and the brim. Then you got a catfish pole. Catfish poles are often bigger, heavier duty. Catfish are bottom feeders and they get very large in size. Sometimes catfish can get up to 100 pounds fishing in the right area. And like I said, they are bottom feeders, so your most important time after you hang a catfish is getting them off the bottom, because all the sunken debris does go to the bottom and they can get hung up and get broke off pretty easily. The main thing you need to figure out about picking your tackle is make sure you use just as light a tackle as you can get by when you're catching your fish. Because the lighter the tackle, the lighter the lead, the smaller the hook, and the lighter the line, the more natural the presentation is going to look to the fish, and you're going to get more bites. Are you going to lose a few fish? Yes, you are. But I would rather get 50 bites in a day and lose 2 fish than to get no bites and catch no fish. I'm going to tell you a little story about a lady I met at a pond one day. I was sitting in a pond, I was fishing, I was having pretty good luck, I was catching fish pretty quick, and this little old lady come over here and sit beside me, and she was not catching any fish. So I got to looking at what she was doing, and I told her, I said, if this doesn't offend you, I want to redo your pole. So I took it, she had a big cork on there, a big sinker, and a big hook. We were fishing for panfish, the brim, the crappie. So I redone her pole and explained to her what we was going to do and the reason I was doing it, and immediately when I got through doing the pole, she started catching fish. So she was happy, I was happy, I was glad to show her the information. So about 3 weeks later, I was sitting at that same pond, here comes that same little old lady with that same big cork, that same big sinker, and same big hook. Again, she wasn't catching anything. So I want to close by saying, if you know where to fish, you know a little bit about fish, and you know what kind of tackle to buy and use, you will become a more successful weekend angler. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach a man to fish, you feed him for